I'd like to welcome those in the audience to the City Council meeting, September 24th, 2019. And so I'll go ahead and call us to order. First, we will do a pledge, and Wendy will lead us in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Wendy. The first item that we have on our agenda this evening is an invitation for public comment, and anyone may speak on a topic other than a matter that is in litigation, quasi-judicial land use matter, or a matter that's scheduled for a public hearing at some future date. We will limit these conversations to 3 minutes per person, and we would ask, I've got public comment cards in front of me. Speakers may not yield their time to others in order to encourage an environment of openness, courtesy, and respect for differing views or points of view. Please refrain from behavior that is disruptive to the meeting, such as making loud noises, clapping, shouting, booing, or any other activity that disrupts our orderly conduct of this meeting. Abusive language will not be tolerated. So I know that's not going to happen this evening. And so Del Zuck, Del, would you come and, good to see you, sir.
Yes.
Welcome.
Well, Mayor and Councilman, I feel like I should be addressing you by your first names because I know most of you, but I'm coming as a citizen. This morning, coming home from the beach, car accident out on 18 and ambulances were there. I want to make sure the first thing we do as a family, we address or we give family members call, did you make it work today? I want to make sure the fire department has ambulances where they need them. Having said that, this ordinance is the wrong way to go about addressing the problem that you see here in our care centers. The elderly, we cannot raise these funds from the backs of the elderly. I've lived in this community over 50 years. 37 of those years I've been at Rock of Ages. And it is, I was told by the fire department the $1,500 fee does affect Rock of Ages. Could somebody clarify that?
I believe you're located outside the city limits.
I was told that does affect us, but not the bed fee.
No, neither one of those fees apply to you if you're operating outside the city limits under the current ordinance.
So having said that, I'm addressing it to my mother, my mother-in-law. We're in care centers here in town receiving therapy. And I would want the ambulances there if a staff member needs the help they need. If there is a problem within these centers, we need to be addressing the problem, not charging it on the backs of our seniors. Most of these regulations that were put up there tonight, proposed regulations, I live and breathe these regulations. We already have to do every single one of those. We do. And why would we, again, add more regulation on what we already do? If you took the nursing home regulations, it's next to nuclear power. It's regulated 6 feet high of paper, one on top of the other would be the nursing home regulations. They're regulated, and who pays for that? Our residents do. It takes a tremendous amount of work in these centers, and why we would put more regulation on our centers and also charge fees when they're charged. If there's a problem out there, this is not the way to do it. And I really discourage any kind of fees that would put it on the backs of our seniors that have to pay for it. They're the ones that pay these bills. They get charged for it. As a not-for-profit organization, thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Next, Mark Davis. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'd like to address you regarding your work session last Wednesday on Visit McMinnville. I found the event both inspiring and troubling. There were some really great citizens doing some really great things in the community, and they were telling you all about it. And, have a lot of respect for them individually. The stories were good. But, they talk about being data-driven. I'm data-driven also. So I've brought my economic opportunities analysis binder with some data that I'd like to give you. This is Exhibit 4, covered employment and average pay by sector, McMinnville in 2017. They listed 17 sectors, construction, manufacturing, the typical. And I want to draw your attention to accommodation and food services. Had the lowest average pay for employee, $18,591. The second lowest was arts, entertainment, and recreation at $18,622. These are the industries that Visit McMinnville is basically impacting. And I think as a community, we have to be concerned that, despite the stories and the fact that they are helping some of the employees, the reality of the situation, this is state data, came from Oregon employment data, quarterly census of employment and wages. We're talking about 99 establishments with 1,503 employees. So there's a lot of people out there that are struggling to make ends meet. And, I guess my concern in all this is the housing piece. I've talked to you about housing, and I've talked to you about how the Visit McMinnville impact has really, we've lost some of our affordable housing because of this. And I just don't see how continuing down this path. I think tourism was growing in this community before we got Visit McMinnville, but now with Visit McMinnville, it's like tourism on steroids. It is really growing. They do a great job. I don't disagree with that, but it's having an impact. And I think that there's people in this community that are starting to feel a little uncomfortable about the direction we're headed in. And I think we need to start figuring out how we're going to provide housing for these people making less than $20,000 a year. And I serve on your affordable housing task force, and I know that the solutions are few and far between. So I think the city owns this now. You're supporting Visit McMinnville, and I think the city needs to be part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Sherry Hash. Welcome, Cherry. I just wanted to welcome you. It's good to see you.
Yes. Mayor Hill and the City Council, I had the opportunity to work with you earlier this year on the Budget Committee, and I'm here today to urge your steadfast support for the Ordinance 5059. I strongly believe in the value that this ordinance provides for the safety of our elder citizens and disabled citizens in care home facilities. And I know that many of us, including myself, have experienced the situations encountered in care home facilities. And I think that many of the people who are there have paid substantial sums, ranging from $4,000 to $12,000 a month, to receive assistance, whether it's for non-emergency support or refilling their prescriptions. And I think one of the things that happens is that for the vast majority of the facilities in the city of McMinnville, I think there's 13, the vast majority of those are owned by out-of-state corporations. They are for-profit. They are not nonprofit. And it's a different direction and a different goal setting for those owners of those corporations when they are tasked with allocating resources for staff and care for those residents. I think one of the operators in the state of Oregon wrote recently in the News Register that the costs incurred to provide this non-emergency assistance will be passed on. And I'm here to say that no, it doesn't have to be passed on. That's part of the profit equation. And that I can't think of any other business in this city that when we reviewed the budget, that we provided a subsidy for business operating expenses. And that's essentially what we're doing, is we're providing a subsidy for the operating expenses of these care home facilities. So I'm urging you to stand tall, stand firm, and stay with the elderly. Thank you.
Thank you, Cherry. Phil Bentley. Welcome, Phil.
Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Phil Bentley with the Oregon Healthcare Association. A lot has been discussed this evening. I just wanted to touch on a couple of things since our association was referenced a couple of times, and there were some questions from the council regarding our involvement. And I just want to be clear, we have not been directly involved in the development of the proposal that was presented to you this evening. There's probably there's a lot of back and forth that we could get into about all the communications that we've attempted to have going back to October regarding this issue when we first raised concerns. I think the best way to describe our experience in this process so far is to talk about the meeting we had today, which Chief Lightfoot referenced that we had participated in. And the way that went down for us was, and what I think the chief didn't add, is that we weren't actually invited to that meeting by the people hosting it. Our members asked us if we could attend, which we did, myself and Ms. Kirschbaum. And the meeting began with the CEO of the hospital asking us to please not participate too much because we were not originally invited to the meeting. So I don't know if that's the culture issue that you're getting at, Councilor Peralta, but there certainly seems to be a culture issue here that I think has led to where we're at today regarding a ballot measure being before voters, because I do think that there probably was opportunities for meaningful conversations that could have potentially led to a different outcome that we didn't get to. There's a number of other incidents regarding the way things have been characterized this evening that we would take umbrage with. The only thing I think we could say we agree with the way things were characterized on process is that we were not aware of this ordinance before it was passed, and that is an accurate statement. And once we were aware of it, we made multiple attempts to engage, and well, we are where we are today.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
Dr. Jim Davis. Welcome, Doctor.
Mayor Hill and members of the council, I'm Dr. Jim Davis, a retired psychologist, gerontologist, and professor, and also a senior and disability advocate in the state of Oregon for the past 46 years. I'm here today representing the Oregon State Council for Retired Citizens and United Seniors of Oregon, the state affiliates of the National Council on Aging. I'm here in opposition, strong opposition to this second attempt to target local seniors, as we extremely opposed to the ordinance that was recently passed that would tax seniors in the manner that it did. I was here at a hearing, I think a number of weeks ago, and waited till 10:30 at night, and the hearing wasn't held till 12:30 in the morning. I think that this process has many questionable aspects to it, but we are very, very concerned that what you are doing is setting a terrible precedent and will inflict a significant burden upon local seniors. The McMinnville City Council has targeted seniors with taxes, fees, and fines to make up a revenue shortfall. This additional money raised by the city does not directly benefit senior residents or create needed oversight. In my 46-year career, where I have helped in so many ways in the development of the state senior long-term care system, it is truly the first time that I have seen a city attempt to adopt its own set of long-term care regulations and care standards. To my knowledge, in fact, you are the only city in the United States that has attempted to do so. It's especially galling, the lack of outreach to the broader senior and disability advocacy communities who've worked on these issues for decades. Let me be clear, this policy is flawed from start to finish. Due to my limited time this evening, I want to focus really on a foundational flaw in this city-level regulation within Oregon's long-term care system. The city of McMinnville does not have the expertise, the knowledge, the resources to effectively regulate or enforce care standards for senior care providers. That expertise lies with the Oregon Department of Human Services and the Aging and People with Disabilities Division and the local Area Agency on Aging and Disabilities, and the thousands of professional staff and regulators that they employ. As a matter of fact, Oregon has been a pioneer and is one of the nation's model community-based long-term care systems. Your ordinance conflicts with the extensive state and federal regulations affecting senior care providers. I just have a few more things. Yes, please.
You've exceeded your time.
Okay, well, thank you. But let you know that advocates will keep fighting this at a state and local level, for sure. This is a terrible measure. Thank you so much for having me.
Next on our agenda this evening, we have a proclamation. And I'll come down and I'll call Scott Cooper up from MEDP. Scott? Good to see you. You've got your annual awards activity coming up fairly soon, don't you?
October 3rd now, Monty.
Absolutely. Well, tonight we have a proclamation, and so I'll go ahead and read that. Whereas manufacturing makes a very significant contribution to the national, state, and local economy, and whereas our community is fortunate to be the home of over 90 world-class manufacturing companies, and whereas those manufacturing companies add to the vitality, prosperity of our community by employing over 4,000 people with a 236 million average annual payroll. Therefore, Scott A. Hill, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of McMinnville, do hereby proclaim October 4th, 2019 as McMinnville May Day in conjunction with the National Manufacturing Day. In witness thereof, I have hereto set my hand and caused the official seal of the city of McMinnville to be affixed this the 24th day of September 2019, signed Scott A. Hill. Scott, congratulations, and I know you'll share that with your group. You're going to be making a presentation to us, and so I'll just have you come up to make your presentation, and any words that you might have at that, I'm sure will be included in your presentation. Sure. Thank you, Melissa. So we'll have Scott come up and make his presentation. That's next on our agenda this evening. It's the annual report of MEDP to the council.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. This is my first visit to an official council meeting anyway, so this is exciting for me. Thank you. I appreciate the invitation, and I'm excited to share with you kind of the annual update and where we've been in the last 12 months for the McMinnville Economic Development Partnership. I'm going to start off and kind of jump right into things. I guess maybe a quick and brief background. I have been in McMinnville now 6 months. It's gone by very quickly. I came here by way of Iowa through a 17-year stop in the Scottsdale, Arizona area. I worked for 3 municipalities there, so the council chambers are not unfamiliar to me. I worked in the city of Scottsdale, the city of Peoria, and Fountain Hills is my last stop before accepting this position with MEDP. I'm very honored, very excited to be here. We've vacationed up here a couple of times, and like a lot of people, fell in love with the area and were eager to relocate. So it's been a great move, and I'm excited about the future here. Our business highlights for the last 12 months, and these will largely cover expansion and retention projects, which is a terrific thing and something I believe greatly in, and I'll share a little bit more about that a little later. ECNC, this is a high-tech and aerospace machining company. This was an expansion and retention project. They moved to the Owyhee property from a former location at Buns Village in May of 2019. The new space is 8,000 square feet, which doubled their space. They retained 15 employees at a payroll of just under $700,000 annually. Northwest Rapid Manufacturing is a 3D printed parts and prototypes. This was an expansion. Their construction is near completion at the Northwest UAV campus on Durham Lane. The company has been located at its current space in Buns Village since 2008. They've retained 10 jobs with a direct payroll of just over $600,000. Springs Living, this is a retention expansion project, purchased a building along 3 Mile Lane to serve as its headquarters and relocated from a building that was downtown along 4th Street. They were planning to grow their employment base in the future, but they retained 52 employees and a direct payroll impact of just over $2.7 million annually. West Coast Feed and Seed, it's a grain feed manufacturing. This is the former Purina building. It's got new ownership, and they bought the facility and the company and have retained all of the jobs. Those are about 14 or 15 employees with a payroll annually around just under $800,000. Precision Aviation, this is a UAV operation. They do a lot of things out there, helicopter, plane flight services, maintenance, and a lot more. This was an expansion recruitment project. They purchased a building along 3 Mile Lane as well. This was in November of 2018. They went from 50 employees last September to over 90 employees this June, with significant growth plans for their future. It's 90 employees added with a direct payroll impact annually of about $5.3 million. Buildable is a custom software developer and web designer. This is formerly known as LivSys. They've purchased a building on 3rd Street, refurbished it, and are moving in. And this will be their new offices. They've got some room for expansion and room for growth there as well. And a direct payroll impact with their 10 employees of about just under $500,000. Ultimate RB, a recycled rubber technology and expansion project. This is under relatively new ownership with the Carlisle Company, and they've hired on about 20 additional people this year, and their direct payroll impact just over $1 million. Northwest UAV, I mentioned them just a little bit earlier. They began the expansion on their property in 2018. They're still in the final stages of building for some of their space. Their expansion included 30,000 square foot of new buildings on the lot. The company also did a ribbon cutting last month called Flight Analysis and System Tests. It's called the FAST program. It's a UAV range. It's 5 nautical mile radius of testing airspace. Their next steps include an incubator space for a one-stop shop for UAV startups and existing UAV companies wanting to test new products. This is a great resource for our region and really helps grow an aerospace cluster in McMinnville. Those are typically great jobs and certainly a growing industry in this area. So it's a really big get for them. Some industrial land highlights. We have 28 acres that was formerly owned by Kelly McDonald. It's now called Rivergate. It was sold to Hunter Renaissance Development. The plan is to become an agricultural manufacturing space, really a food and beverage area, more on the manufacturing side of those things, but with a little bit of mixed use in there as well. The Owyhee properties, 4 10,000 square foot buildings ranging in size from 2 to 10,000 square feet. Space is divisible, and their first 2 buildings completed in 2019 are filled. Construction has begun on the last 2 buildings. Some workforce highlights. Hopefully most of you are familiar with the McMinnville Works program. We've just completed our 7th year with 13 interns at 11 different host sites this year. Since the beginning of the program, we've had 40 interns that have had an extended internships or have been hired directly out of the program. That's out of about 90 total, so that's a really great number for us. We also, this year was our pilot year for a brand new program, and that's the Career Bound program. This focused on recent high school graduates who did not plan to attend a 4-year institution, but more interested in learning a skilled trade. We had 4 host sites in our first year, 6 interns participated. 5 of those interns were hired on as employees after they were done this summer. Another great program and something we really look forward to building on in the coming years. EduTours. These are really introducing local students to workforce opportunities in McMinnville. We had 4 businesses that we did this year. I got here in time and was able to participate in 3. We went to Solid Form, Northwest Rapid Manufacturing, Northwest UAV, and Betty Lou's. We had 97 students that were impacted and were able to go through this and see these tours. And of course, Mayor Hill has often participated, and you might find him in the far right of that picture somewhere.
Yeah, I have to mention the 2 Scots having their red hats on here make the picture.
Yeah, those have appeared far too often in my short time here. But great programs, definitely. Some highlights for us this year. The Launch Mid-Valley was, this is a tri-county venture, including partners from MEDP, SEDCOR, Small Business Development Center, Merit, Business Oregon, the cities of Dallas, Independence, Newburgh, Salem, and Woodburn. It's an effort really to support and grow entrepreneurship in our region. We, as a collective group, hired what we call a venture catalyst for the Mid-Valley, and the gentleman's name is Mike White. He is an entrepreneur. He's been through the program. He's taught some in the Chemeketa system, and it really is about fostering, building, finding entrepreneurs in our communities and helping them grow, helping them build, helping them start up, and giving them the tools needed to do so. The Oregon Works Grant. We did receive 2 grants, from the one from the Ford Family Foundation and one from the Oregon Community Foundation for the purpose of expanding our internship program like the McMinnville Works program, really expanding it to the rural areas of the state. We taught it in 4 rural communities in Oregon, one in Roseburg, Ontario, Boardman, and Coos Bay. And we will continue to work with them in the coming year to help them expand that and really get those programs off the ground for them so they can do like we've been doing for 7 years. So I was kind of charged with taking the first 6 months of the job and learning as much as I can about the community, meeting as many people as I can, and then kind of formulating a plan to move forward. Like I said, it's hard to believe the 6 months has come and gone already, but I do have kind of our 4 strategies that I hope to be focusing on in the coming years. This is certainly not a short-term goal or short-term project, but I'll share those with you. Our mission hasn't changed. It is advancing the strategic efforts that respond to the needs of McMinnville's traded sector businesses. And our goals are really, I designed these to kind of guide, to support our mission and to help support the efforts of the city's MacTown 2032 Economic Development Strategic Plan. Our targeted industries are advanced manufacturing, aerospace, agribusiness, food and beverage, research and development, and technology. And our first goal, I think, is the most important goal, is the business retention and expansion. I think that the job numbers and the growth overview that I shared just over the past few minutes just shows the positive impacts of local business over time. In the last 12 months, those numbers are 201 jobs created and retained, and nearly $12 million in annual payroll. BR and programming, I really think, can be the catalyst for the rest of our goals. Building those relationships, finding out what their supply chains are, their workforce needs and issues, and talent attraction efforts are really things all that can come out of a strong BR&E program. We want to be proactive, not reactive. If we're reacting to companies and their changes, we're losing. And we want to make sure that we know what's going on with them as it's happening, so we can best serve the companies that are existing in McMinnville. Our second goal, business attraction. New money and new business is always important for long-term sustainability of the traded sector. Diversification is important. We want to focus our efforts, I think, which makes a lot of sense. It's certainly initially close, though the West Coast makes sense. California makes a lot of sense. I came, obviously, from Arizona, where we spent a lot of time in California recruiting companies, and for obvious reasons. I think McMinnville and certainly Oregon share some similar advantages over California. I think the state of Washington and certainly Canada is ripe for opportunity as well. So those places are all close. It's more fiscally responsible for us to be recruiting close, and we'll certainly work with our partners at Business Oregon, at SEDCOR, the regions, and the governor's office as well to assist us with all of these things. And there's a good chance I'll be calling on some of you to assist in those circumstances as well. Our third goal, workforce development. I don't think that's a shock to anybody that that's an important factor for us, growing both our workforce internally and externally. We need to continue to grow in our workforce programs. Building partnerships with our local schools and institutions is hugely important. Listening to our existing industries, I talked about that through a solid BR&E program. And externally, talent attraction strategies and targeted marketing. How do we get the people that we need to grow a technology community and showcase what we have here to offer? Our fourth strategic goal, innovation development. This is really working to foster and grow ideas by developing programs to assist with raising capital, with training, technical assistance that the startups really need to get off the ground and grow. Those are our 4 strategic goals moving forward. 2020, I think, is shaping up to be a busy year. Our pipeline is starting to fill up. We've got new projects that we're dealing with on the retention and expansion side, as well as the business attraction. And on behalf of the MEDP Board of Directors and our staff, we certainly thank you, Council, Mayor, for your continued support. It is vital to what we do. Thank you for your time.
Any questions for Scott from the council?
I will.
Go ahead, Wendy.
At the last MEDP day, Jody was talking about the tech terroir, however you pronounce that. Terroir. What kinds of activity has happened with regards to that this year? I know you talked about technology some, but I know that was a big focus at the last event that you guys had.
Yeah, that's something that was a brand-new program announced by MEDP at the at the end of last year. And, I've spent, for the most part of the first 6 months, just, it's all about growing technology naturally through what we have, much like terroir with wine, which was the play on that word. And I fully support that program, and we will be moving forward with that. We've got a lot of new technology companies that are in the last 3 to 4 years and less that have moved to McMinnville and are growing fast in McMinnville. And we will certainly work with them through the Tech Bites, which are kind of a networking event to kind of get started. If we want to truly be and grow a technology in our community, we have to look at the big picture, and we will certainly carry that forward.
So it's within the, both the business attraction and the retention expansion for the technology?
Absolutely it is, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Any other comments? I know last Tuesday night, Scott had the opportunity to address the McMinnville Water and Light Commission and report to them, as they are a partner, much like the city, with MEDP. And I just share with the council how pleased the commission is with the fine work that MEDP is working and their partnership. As Scott would indicate, that it's a total team effort with their board, with staff, and the really proactive nature of economic and business development in this community. So thank you. It's an investment that we're pleased to be a part of, working hand in hand with you, and the ability to coordinate you out of our community development office too makes it almost a one-stop shop, so to speak, in economic development. And said cores there, we just have a lot of good things happening. So thank you for the report, Scott, and take it back to the staff how much we appreciate all that's going on, and to the board.
I will do. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
have one question, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Scott, is there anything from a policy standpoint that you could see we as a city could do to help MEDP and what you're trying to do? Is there anything standing in the way of what you're accomplishing?
There's a new term that I learned and I'm continuing to learn moving to Oregon, is this UGB. I came from Arizona. That did not exist. I make the joke that if we had a company would come and say, we'd like this 20 acres and can we bring it into the city, I'd say we could have that done by lunch if you need it. I've learned that's not the case in Oregon. That's certainly something, and I know it's being worked on, that is important, and it's being addressed, and that's is critical, I think, for not only business. Obviously that affects every facet of our economy, housing and commercial and industrial and everything in between. So the attention to that is critical. I think something that I think that would be nice to look at is how can we, either as MEDP, an organization, or as a city, offer some skin in the game in small facets. And I think that if it's a little thing like what we can organize with the revolving loan fund that can help in a small manner towards the gap financing in an SBA loan. I find it difficult to say, and I don't like to say it when companies or entrepreneurs who are trying to get something started, and I have to refer right away back to the state of Oregon as assistance in those matters. And it would be great if we had something to bring to the table on that, to say, we've got a small revolving loan fund that can help you gap finance your needs for that, and it might be $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. Not a great amount, but enough that makes a huge difference. So that's the kind of things that we will be looking at in the coming year, some opportunities for that.
Thank you. Appreciate the insight.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. We are to that point where we're under advice and information items this evening, and so reports from councilors on committee and board assignments, and I'll go ahead and start with Zach, and we'll move down.
I've got landscape, historic landmarks, and some involvement in Kids on the Block. Landscape, I was absent for. Historic Landmarks Committee will be this Thursday, in which, if you read the paper, you'll be seeing about First Federal's big building they're proposing downtown, so it should be exciting and interesting to learn about that. They're asking for several downtown design development waivers, and it's going to be a pretty big, impactful building visually and economically downtown, so that would be a good one if you're around. And Kids on the Block we're working with, we presented with you guys, checking with Susan, you're on how we're doing with a joint meeting between City Council and School Board, which would be the next step, which should be exciting. So hopefully we get rolling on that, and that is, I had a good time at the air show. That's my report.
Thank you, Zach. Wendy?
We have not had a MURAC meeting since our last meeting or a 3rd Street or downtown strategy. I have been talking to some local citizens just to check in on different government relations and how they're feeling about what's happening in the city. So I'll have a report back about that probably in a coming meeting. But other than that, I don't have anything else to report.
Thank you, Wendy. Adam?
YCOM will reconvene after 3 months off in October, so a few more weeks. If you want to see a lively YCOM meeting, I'm sure it should be action-packed. And from all accounts, it looks like the air show went off without a bang, but yeah, Friday night had a good fireworks show, and I think there's, always some people that are concerned about the noise levels and stuff, but all in all, I think it was a well-planned and well-executed community event.
Thank you, Adam. Sal?
Council of Governments met yesterday. They asked for members to identify priorities for the 2021 legislative session. So I think it might be a good idea for us to, sit down with some community stakeholders and hash that out. Maybe we can have a little more success in the upcoming special session than we did in the last session. In the last council meeting, I mentioned that there had been significant work by the Yamhill Watershed Council in City Park, Tice Park, and other locations around the city. I had a chance to meet with their staff between the last meeting and this meeting, and they shared more information about grant funding through the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board. And in a nutshell, that board 3 times a year allocates $15,000 grants against a $5,000 local match, and that match can either be cash or in-kind services like time, volunteer time planting trees and that type of thing. And I have suggested to staff, and I'd like to suggest to council, that we ask the Watershed Council to work with our staff to bring a proposal to us that'll allow them to increase their restoration work on the cosign to take advantage of those OWEB funds. I understand there's oftentimes funds left available at the end of the year, so there's definitely a significant amount of opportunity to leverage our city resources with that grant funding. Additionally, Wendy mentioned that she's going to be bringing a report to a future meeting about conversations with downtown property owners. I've had similar meetings. I actually sat in one of the meetings that Wendy participated in. I've met with Jenny Berg in her capacity as MDA chair to discuss various aspects of redevelopment. And also I've had conversations with the staff at the State Historic Preservation Office that echoed requests of several property owners in the downtown that we review the city codes to make sure that they're continuing to meet our needs with respect to redevelopment of commercial and residential properties in the downtown core. Their office suggested that it might not be a bad idea to put together a work group to review the city codes and then make recommendations. I think that would be a great idea. That was echoed by a lot of stakeholders here in town, so I would encourage us to do that. And then the last, just 2 more quick items. In 2016, the Multnomah County Commission put forward a charter amendment that enacted limits on campaign contributions in Multnomah County. They had also made requirements about disclosures, campaign disclosures on printed materials that go out. The city of Portland adopted a similar ordinance in 2018. I've worked on this issue for about 20 years. I think that we should consider at a future meeting of our council adopting some disclosures on paid communications in municipal elections so that voters will have a sense of who's paying for communications. I think it just helps to make for a more informed electorate. And then finally, I put together a slide presentation that I'd like to enter into the record on homelessness earlier this summer. So I just wanted to check, David, is it okay if I email out to the whole council the notes that I just read with that report, and then that could go into the record if I do it during the meeting?
So what I would say is you need to send that to the city recorder, and then she will handle the distribution out to council.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Sal. Kelly?
I'm looking through our agenda. We have Affordable Housing Task Force this Wednesday. We're going to be looking at a CDBG grant from the Oregon Housing Development Department, $500,000 grant. And then we're also contemplating the multifamily housing land acquisition program. So just that for your information. I had an opportunity to talk with Alexandra Hendren, I think is her last name, with YCAP. Interesting discussion. She's very interested in a possible position that she would request some funding from the council as a housing position. It sounds very similar to something that the Affordable Housing Committee put together, but we're still kind of going back and forth on what we would absolutely have to have as a city, because obviously the funds would have to be specific for the city. Beyond that, I don't have a great deal more. Looking forward to League of Oregon Cities this week.
Thank you, Kelly. For me, I just wanted to let you know, last week, Dave Hagelberg, Commissioner Rick Olson, and myself had an opportunity to do a beautiful drive in the rain down the gorge to Ladow's to spend 3 minutes each before the OTC, which is Oregon Transportation Committee, and sharing some thoughts about the Newburgh-Dundee bypass. It was 5 hours for 9 minutes, but we felt it was very effective because the new OTC, a new chair, and a number of members, they had not heard our story about what we are trying to do with the bypass. We had some time prior to the meeting to introduce ourselves to the new committee members. We're going to update our little handout that goes through where we've been, what we want, and where we want to go with the bypass. And we'll be hopefully meeting with the OTC members individually to pass that out. The next day we came back and we had a Newburgh-Dundee Parkway Committee meeting where we really are trying to put together and update all of our support letters from those on the coast, all around us, commissioners, cities, city councils. And so we've taken some assignments on to update that, and we're moving forward. Where we're sitting right now is we need $32 million to get through the right-of-way purchasing for phase 2, and ODOT will not move us forward in that process until we get the $32 million. And so in the real scheme of things with the ODOT and with the transportation initiatives we have, $32 million isn't much. And so that's what we're trying to ask for, little bits to do what we need to have happen. Last Tuesday we had the McMinnville Water and Light, and I'll try to update you on a monthly basis what we're doing there. Half of our meeting last week was in executive session talking about acquisition of land, water rights, and some of those things that will come out at a later date. But we did have a public hearing on the proposed increase to our water rates. and they will be just incremental. I think it's 5%, and it's a part of our master plan. What we're trying to do is prepare for the intake that's going to be down by the airport of our water right on the Willamette River. We have a water right of about 5 million gallons per day. And so we need to perfect that. And so we're working towards saving on that. As Wendy indicated, 3 of us are headed to Bend tomorrow for the League of Oregon Cities Conference. The agenda, the conference looks very powerful. Lots of opportunities for us to learn on areas where we can grow our knowledge and understanding, a great opportunity to network around the state. And for me, one of the greatest opportunities, and the others will be to be able to sit down with directors of state agencies, and we do have the directors there. So we'll be able to meet with the new director of ODOT, although he has not been, the Senate has not confirmed him yet, but we know he's going to happen. That's going to happen. The new director of the Department of Aviation talking about enhancements out at the airport, and I've already talked to Mike Bissett today to kind of get my talking points there, and various other individuals. And then lastly, as many of the councilors have indicated, how at this point successful we feel the air show was. Specifically would like to thank the 2 chiefs. They did yeomen's jobs. We had half of their departments on time and a half, and on their own out there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday had a great presence there. Not only a great presence, but I think we had a lot of fun meeting people, doing the things we need to do. I had an opportunity on Saturday evening to be a part of the pilots and the sponsors. We had dinner under the Spruce Goose, and those pilots were amazed to be having dinner under the Spruce Goose. You know, we were amazed at their flying, but they were amazed to be able, from an expertise that they have, to be in such a world-class museum in the Air Museum. And again, I spent 3 full days from early to late. Spent a couple days with the debriefs with the chiefs, just hearing how all-encompassing that went. And so hats off to the city of McMinnville, to Jeff, and the negotiations that we did to be able to allow us to have the air show this year. Our airport did phenomenal. The box was as good as a box can be for an air show. And there's great desire to talk to us about coming back, and all the pilots said they'd be back here in a heartbeat compared to Hillsborough. That would be my report. Let's go to department heads. Chief?
Mayor, Council, thank you. I know during our executive session, Councilor Gary wanted a quick update from our perspective about what our thoughts were with the air show. From public safety, law enforcement, I'll let obviously Chief Ledford talk about the fire side, EMS side, but to your point, Mayor Hill, it really was, the heavy lift was done by the captains and the officers. I can be there for a policy perspective, but the captains, the sergeants, and the officers that worked that event really did the heavy lift, and Captain Jasko and Captain Simons do tremendous work on the ops plan, and then our staff carried out the operations itself. But from our perspective, we have not had a debrief. We'll have a formal debrief with the air show, I would imagine within the month, to discuss some things. Public safety inside the gate, which the PD was responsible for, as well as a couple local smaller jurisdictions that helped. No issues at all. Really a family event, no pressing calls for service. Something that you might see maybe at a fair did not occur. Like I had mentioned, downtown didn't burn up during the after hours of the event or during the event. So from my perspective, very huge success as far as us trying to pull this off. And I think as I talked to a couple members, boards of directors with the air show, as well as some lead people that have been in it previously. We did a really good job, and our staff is to be commended for that. Did you have any specific questions related to public safety? What we did, I also want to say the state police did a fantastic job on the highways. They were a little messy, and that's part of our debrief. The traffic mitigation plan, we need to work on that. Again, first year, you don't know what you don't know, although I kind of knew it was going to be bad. It was bad. But all in all, you know, I think they hit their mark where they needed to be attendance-wise, and I know Saturday had, I think, been reported 10,400 people there, and I know it was a little smaller on Friday, and probably initially bigger, or as big, maybe 7,000 on Sunday, but that dwindled quickly once the red arrows couldn't fly. But we still got the F-35 up there, and that was awesome. So my rambling report. Any questions for me, though?
Good time to repair the bridge, right? A couple years from now?
Yeah. So I'll let Chief Ledford talk about that.
I would like to follow up with Chief Scales on the air show, just for a little perspective. I'm a little groggy. I'm still suffering some jet lag. I kind of want to give council the perspective of what it took for our teams to pull this off. From the city manager to the attorney's contract to the planning staff, of which my two folks that manage the entire planning process for us, to the law enforcement component, coordinated 6 law enforcement agencies, including DOJ and some partner agencies. We coordinated 5 fire departments, 2 ambulance services, and the hospital first aid tents. All were under the direct coordination and command control of your resources. And they pulled that off in the 3-month window with McMinnville's resources, which Hillsborough does a normal process with a continued air show over a year-long planning window. So the things that I'm not taking credit for this because I just got to go talk to the weather guy for 3 days. The things that our staff, my staff and his staff and the folks that work directly for you, it was a tremendous accomplishment. The event was successful. It was a great opportunity, and I think we obviously have debriefings of things to work through. We'll be able to continue supporting it if that's the council's decision. In the end, it was fun to watch, an enjoyable day, but I really wanted you to kind of get the perspective of the effort and the lift that your employees did in order to pull this event off here in McMinnville, as compared to, with the limited resources that we have, in a 3-month window rather than a 1-year-long window for planning. And I think just for perspective, I wanted to share that with you. And all of my work under my realm for the planning phase was done by these 2 ladies in the front row. I just pop in for eye candy every now and then. That's about it. They're the ones that did all of the work for the process. And I want to thank them personally and all of our teams that were available. We had firefighters from Georgia. We had firefighters from the Port of Portland, from the Air Base, as well as a local first response group. Because we don't have the staff to support the level of operation, we had to coordinate as the law enforcement did. So now I'm rambling. Thank you for getting me started. The only other thing I'd like to report on is at the next council session, we have received the quote for the consolidation study. We'll be bringing in a timeline and some more specifics on what that looks like, with some planning including up to and including what it would look like for an election for a new district as part of the plan.
Great. David has a question.
Just a quick question, because the topic of cost recovery for emergency services has been something we've discussed. Was this a cost recovery operation, or did the city subsidize that event, the air show?
The entire cost of the staff for planning purposes all the way through the air show is being recovered by the city. We still have to work up our numbers, but we had prepayment from the air show for the majority of it. We are working through the final numbers to make sure that was sufficient, or if we will be billing for additional.
Thank you for bringing that up. Any other questions?
I got one.
Go ahead.
Chief, on that report you're bringing next council meeting, that'll have kind of what you're looking for tax rate wise for fire district, or that'll come at the end of the report?
Well, this is the approving the contract to and the scope of work around what it would look like upon completion, which would give us what the tax rate would be based on our service levels and needs.
Thank you.
Yep.
Right.
I know today we sent an email out to the air show, and I think we're looking at November 12th, Bill and Faith and the group to come in and do a report to us and then recognize the council for their support. So that will be November 12th. At this point, Bill had told me that works for him, and Melissa sent an email out today, so we'll wait to hear if that works for them.
I have a question for the twixt of them. So you talked about the air show specific. Do you have any call logs of anything that happened just generally around the city in relation to the air show? You know, are we under attack? That kind of call?
Well, the air show had a direct line, complaint line, that we referred people that were calling us to within the fire station. So I can't speak to those call logs. I don't know what that looked like. You know, we have Facebook posts and a couple of voicemails, so I couldn't anecdotally speak to issues. There were some noise complaints. There were some noise complaints about animals. But as far as specific numbers, and I don't know that we had responses specific. There were no responses specific to emergency services outside the facility, other than, and I'll caveat that, vehicle accidents post-incident traffic.
I probably had 10. And I've taken yesterday and today to respond to most of those. A lot of them were out of the community, and they just wanted to let us know that we were polluting the air and things such as that. So. Elizabeth.
Thank you, Mayor. I have just two things I want to report on. One is the City of McMinnville was awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for the 2017-18 year by GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers Association, for its comprehensive annual financial report.
That's big. How many years have we had that? It's been many years ongoing, if I'm not mistaken, and you may not be aware of that, but.
There are a lot of plaques in.
At least 3 or 4 deep, I think. 3 or 14.
I just want to follow up with that this is the highest form of recognition in governmental accounting and finance, and it's really an accomplishment by Marcia and her team. So she's retired, but she does get all the credit for this. Also, I want to point out, David and I are working on, effective September 30th, we are transitioning the municipal court team from underneath the city attorney's office to underneath the finance director's position, which as interim, I'll be helping with that transition, bringing them over, and looking forward to implementing some best practices, separation of duties between our offices, and we have 1 week to get this underway, so I'm excited for it. It's a good team.
Yeah, a lot of planning underway leading up to Elizabeth coming on board, but she's really grabbed hold of it with her background experience in municipal court systems and neighboring jurisdictions as well. The staff is really excited to see that transition occur so we can get better separation between prosecution functions and court administration functions, which this will accomplish for us. So I know we're real excited to see this happen.
Thank you. Melissa? David?
I'm good. I'll be right back.
Mayor, members of the City Council, as you know, tonight is Melissa's last council meeting with the City of McMinnville. She didn't want me to say or do anything, but she doesn't have a kill switch on my mic. She will have served almost 3 full years exactly with the City of McMinnville when we lose her to the City of Canby. Our loss will be their gain, and we definitely wish Melissa well as she makes her transition. Rather than talk to you about all of the great things that Melissa has done for us, I want to tell you about one of the very first meetings I had with Melissa when, after she had to suffer through my life story, I let her know that I was giving her permission to tell me no if she needed to do so. At which point, she technically did tell me no by saying, "I'll never do that to you." She didn't keep that promise. One time about 8 months ago, she did tell me no. It was so momentous that it sort of set me back, and I don't even remember what she told me no about, but she needed to. And so I will just use that story as an example of how helpful and accommodating Melissa is, not just to me as the city manager, but to everyone who has ever had the opportunity to work with her. You know that because you see her every couple of weeks or so, and you deal with her a lot in between. We will miss Melissa. We will wish her well. And I just want to thank you for the time that I've been able to spend with you here, Melissa. You have a great career in front of you.
You're here. If I may also, I mean, Melissa supports the council, and you see her every other week when we're here, and some of you that drop upstairs in the administration see her, but just to give you an idea, I think I left 3 messages today as we were working through things, but what a joy she is. Always a smile, always a can-do attitude, and then her work that she has done as a city recorder, working on the code and those types of things. That's behind the scenes. We don't see that, but her ability to get things done, she has left such an impression for the next person to come is going to make that job so much easier. So again, on behalf of the city and the city council, we've got something for you. It's always good to say it with flowers, isn't it? Okay. She'll take her flowers and walk. We have in our packet the August building reports. We have the June cash and investment report. And then if I could bring your attention to a memo from Sean O'Day, the director of the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments, as it relates to the process that we're going to be going through for Jeff's review this year. A lot of this stuff happens in October, so please take a look. The opportunity to share your input for his performance becomes critical. So again, any questions, feel free to get a hold of myself. You can go right to Jeff or Kylie, and we can go from that perspective. Next on the agenda is our consent agenda, and we have 2 items. Is there any counselor that would like to take anything on our consent agenda off of it? Hearing none, I'd ask for a motion.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved by Kelly and seconded by Sal. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by saying nay? The consent agenda passes unanimously 5-0 this evening. We have on the agenda an ordinance, but that is going to, we determined that we're not going to do the first reading of an ordinance, and we're going to wait till after the election to move forward with any revisions to Ordinance 5059. We have one resolution this evening, and that resolution is number 2019-61, a resolution awarding the sole source contract for the regular maintenance of the City of McMinnville's public safety radio system. And Chief, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Tim's
Members
coming
of
up.
the council, I'll refer you to your packet where we've submitted staff report. We've also attached a proposal submitted by Day Wireless for the annual maintenance of our public safety radio system, as well as a sole source confirmation letter from Motorola identifying Day Wireless as a sole source company that can and does provide maintenance for them solely in our area. A little background on this. Again, this is a resolution that would award the sole source contract to Day Wireless on this public safety radio system. And the background is in March, we all know, as we've heard throughout the spring and summer about our radio system, is we installed a new simulcast system. It's a 3-repeater system, 3-tower system, 3-repeater system, excuse me, I should say. And in 2013, we ended that one-year warranty. The city sought quotes from Motorola and Day Wireless for the maintenance of the system. It was determined at that time that Day Wireless system was the only provider within our McMinnville area that is covered under Motorola to work on our system. There was a resolution that passed in both 2013 and then subsequently in 2016, again awarding that contract to Day Wireless. Our contract right now is going to expire with Day Wireless September 30th. We reached out to them again, and as your pack will note, they were identified by Motorola Solutions as the only public safety maintenance provider in our area that is authorized to work on the Motorola equipment. We then have met the sole source requirement, I guess bar, so to speak, in that Day Wireless is the only person that can provide service on our radio system. I will note that in 2013 and 2016, the contract was for a 3-year period on both of them, and those were set at right around $35,000. This new contract that has come out would be a 5-year contract that did increase in price to a total of $44,080.80 annually, with no increase or escalators throughout that year. So we are set for that 5 years. Staff recommends that council move and adopt this resolution and approve this resolution allowing Day Wireless to continue their service on our radio system. And I will say it's just not a city system. It's also utilized by the McMinnville School District, Linfield College, Public Works, etc. So it is actually a citywide simulcast system that's being used. And with that, I will take your questions.
Any questions of the chief?
I have one.
Go ahead.
What prompted the 5-year versus 3-year contract?
I will say Captain Simons did a lot of work on this. I believe he could answer that, and that.
So we're not having to go back every 3 years?
Okay.
I would also answer that question with, I did have a conversation with the city manager about the length of that contract. Obviously, you all know that we are getting an updated system for at least the police side of it. Some components are going to be new. Our radios will be new. And so we're not exceeding the service life of this radio system and the equipment from the police public safety side of it. And I'd ask Chief Lyford if he thinks that 5 years is too long of a contract.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll just make a notice that at the air show, Day Wireless provided all the communications that was being used by the technical people running the air show. I noted that. So what we have in front of us is a resolution 2019-61, a resolution awarding the sole source contract for the regular maintenance of the City of McMinnville public safety radio system. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Adam and seconded by Sal. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by saying nay? Resolution 2019-61 passes unanimously 5-0. With that, that will close our city council meeting, and then we'll now move into a urban renewal agency meeting. And so I'll go ahead and open up that meeting.